When we use machine learning to make predictions of whether something is true or not, there are actually different kinds of wrong. Now that sounds strange, right? Either you're right or you're wrong. Not quite correct. There are different kinds of wrong. So we can call them false positives or false negatives. Let me give you an example to make it more clear. Imagine that we have a campaign to sell a Tesla car. And we're going to send out a bunch of emails to make people aware of this car that we want to sell them. Now, our predictive model is going to pick who should we send this message to? The people that are likely to buy if we give them the message. That's the whole point of the predictive model. So a false positive is when we say that this person is likely to buy the car, and we spend the resources to do the marketing to them, and then they don't buy. So of course we're disappointed because they didn't buy, but we also spent resources to try and sell them that actually didn't give us any outcome. So not great. That's called a false positive. We thought something was true, and it was not true. The other kind of wrong is a false negative. So in this case, we build a predictive model. We said, this individual, they are not likely to buy this car. So let's not spend the resources to try and sell it to them because anyway, they're not going to buy. But in fact, some of those people would have bought had you sent them the right message communicating the value proposition of this car. So that's a false negative. We said that they wouldn't buy, but in fact they would have bought had you given them the opportunity. False positive and false negative are different. And in fact, the impact is very different on the business. What is the cost of sending an email to someone who doesn't buy? Almost nothing, quite frankly, because emails incrementally cost nothing. False negative, what's the cost of that? Well, I could have sold this $100,000 car to this person had I just sent them the email, and I didn't do it. So you can see that the cost of the false negative, the opportunity cost, is much higher than the cost of the false positive, the incremental expense on this one additional email. It's important to understand that these different types of wrong have different costs to it. And I can, as a data scientist, turn a knob and I can make trade-offs between false positives and false negatives. I will never be completely correct all the time. But do I want more false negatives or more false positives? Well, it depends on what is the decisioning situation you have. In this particular case, I clearly would like to have almost no false negatives because opportunity cost is very high. And I'm willing to send a lot of emails to people who aren't going to buy because the cost of doing that is small. That's why we all get so much junk mail in our email boxes, because the incremental cost is nothing. And even if one person in a million buys this product, then I've been successful. But in different situations, the cost of false positive versus false negative might be very different. If I'm diagnosing some disease and I amputate your leg and I shouldn't have done that, then that's a different set of costs. You have to analyze each decision and understand the trade-offs between false positives and false negatives and adjust the model to bias towards the optimum economics.